All right, we're making gloves for your Space Marine costume. If you're not doing fake hands, as in like giant mechanically operated hands from the inside, you are making gloves. There are two ways to do this that I know of. There's probably more. The easiest way, hockey gloves. That's what this one here is. That is from the Terminator Chaplain, which is on that side. It is, how do we put this? Hockey gloves are expensive. So if you can find a used pair, they're still gonna be like, not even kidding, at least 60 bucks. Downside to these is that they're very hard to move. They already have all of their padding on the outside, and it's insanely restrictive. And they're not that flexible. I mean, you do have some of this motion here, but the thumb goes nowhere. You can just see by just how bulky the thumb is. This is an easy option. If you can find some and you're in a tight deadline, this works. But downside with the hockey glove option is that you have to build your gauntlets around the thickness of these. So that leaves us with option 2, making your own. This has all the flexibility that you will get from a glove, with the same added depth and extensions of foam on the outer ends, just like you would with a hockey glove, to make the hand seem bigger, but one without the cost of that. You're just buying a crappy pair of work gloves from the store and gluing a ton of foam on them. So you're really just paying half the price probably by the end. So these are the gloves that I made for this suit, for the Black Templar, which is now on that side of the room. And the one that we have been talking about for the last however many episodes we're at now. I actually have no idea, I forget. But too many, way too many. So this is hopefully the last focused episode, and we'll get on to funner stuff next. So let's talk about how we made these. All right, so like I said, these were made from the cheapest pair of Walmart work gloves that I could find. I tried to find them as black as possible. These do have some gray on the sides of the fingers, which is fine because I don't think you see that in the end. I might have painted them at some point, or they might have just gotten covered in paint from me spray painting them. Either way, not much to worry about. So first things first, I cut off all of the excess junk that I am not going to need. That would be the Velcro strap on the wrist, because there's absolutely no way I could wrap that around or engage that when I have everything else on, especially since the cuff of the glove is going to be inside the gauntlet, and I couldn't do that anyway. It would just get in the way. So it went out the door. Cut that off, made it a lot easier to get my hand in and out of the glove, which is what I want. All right, so from here on, what I did was I worried that all the foam I was going to attach to the gloves may not permanently stick, since I'd be more or less contact cementing foam to fabric. So the idea I had was to first wrap the entire glove in 2mm foam. So what I did was I first drew out a trace of my hand, and I made a note of where every movable joint in my hand was. Every knuckle, every bit of movement, and I kind of separated that all out into sections. And then I started cutting all of those sections out. And I had to do the reverse side for the palm, so that would have been the inside of the thumb palm and then the rest of the palm. The inside of the hand probably wasn't that necessary, but I went for consistency just to make sure the whole thing was wrapping and kind of connecting into itself. More or less what I'm kind of doing here is I'm making the exact same thing I did for the RoboCop gloves, except this time there's going to be a glove inside of all that, just to make sure that you don't see my fingers, if you've seen that episode. And again, this is one of those processes where once you start it, you really want to just be on that all day, because it's not something you want to let sit. Especially if you have a cat like me. But yeah, I went for a full wraparound on this. So when I went to make my my inner and outer palms. You know, I made like a small little duct tape template to kind of figure out what the small little pieces in between the thumb and the index finger would be, and around the side of the palm. And then I eventually started contact cementing that to the glove itself. I didn't run the contact cement so much on the glove that it started seeping through, but I gave it just enough of a coat that it would saturate it enough to get into the fibers, so that when the foam was on the actual glove, that the two connected. If I started feeling it in my hand, I knew I was going too much, but I put this contact cement on with my hand inside the glove. That way I knew that nothing from the glove was going to start sticking to itself. Yeah, and then as far as the fingers went, I just did full-on strips because I wasn't really concerned about the bend on them. I'd still have all the flexibility I need because the foam's only, what, 2 millimeters? And I just need something for the foam that I'll be putting on afterwards to grab onto. So it didn't hurt anything for it to be unconnected like that. Yeah, and making all these pieces for the thumb was probably a little excessive. In reality, I probably didn't have to go this extreme with all these individual pieces for all the bending it had. I think at this point I wasn't yet pressed for time in the con crunch, and this is just how OCD I am. All right, and now with all of the 2 millimeter foam on everything, now I can finally start adding some depth to it all to just bulk the hand up. I took the same templates I had from the fingers trace them out, and I just started making all the individual finger pieces into blocks. So I believe I used 12 millimeter foam from the giant roll of 12 millimeter I had left over, the same stuff I used for my chains and a bunch of other stuff. This gave me a lot of the bulk that I needed, and I only put all of that on the very top surface. Reason being, I want to be able to close my fingers. So once I had done the top surface, I believe on the insides I had used 5 millimeter foam. Yeah, so after I did the top part of the fingers, then I did along the knuckles. Even though these aren't really going to be seen that much, I still put them in just to have them there. Let's see, we still have, yeah, you don't even see the knuckles at all if you actually look. Like, they are underneath the entire hand plate. Yeah, and then I did the same exact thing for the top of the wrist, or the top of the hand. Again, still wouldn't be seen, but I want that height, so when I do end up putting the top plate on the hand, that it has something to actually sit on, so it's not sunken down or anything like that. Everything has the volume that it needs and the bulk that it needs. Then after that, I filled in the rest of the parts on the hand, which would be right around the base of the thumb. All right, and once I had the entire top surface of everything down with the 12 millimeter foam, that's when I switched to the 5 millimeter foam that I was just talking about. Yeah, for easier mobility of the hand, what I did was, it's gonna be hard to actually show here, but we'll explain. So I actually kind of skipped out on the inside of the fingers right at the base. So you'd have your 3 pieces, you know, 1, 2, 3. So these entire pieces here between the 2 middle fingers, everything in these 3 gaps, there's nothing. That is for mobility. That makes it easier for me to move my fingers around a lot more. I actually do like these a lot more than my RoboCop gloves. The shape of the RoboCop gloves looked better, but this is just, it's functional. But in reality, with this method, you can pretty much get away with just doing the top and then the very outer exposed sides if you're in a complete rush, because nothing in between would ever be seen, especially if you're carrying weapons, which was my entire thought process here. My idea was that I'm carrying these, so anytime, and because the Sword Brethren, and I think most Black Templars in general, have their weapons chained to their arms, I'm never letting go of my weapons until I'm out of costume. So you're never going to even see the palms of my hands, which is why I didn't do any actual detailing there. If I had time, I might have like bridge the gap in between the the side plates, I mean, or the side foam. But because I was going to be handling weapons, I figured it's probably a lot better that I have as much grip as I need, and that would probably get in the way. So I opted out for that. And from there, then came time to Dremel. I just Dremeled the corners smooth, worked on all the edges, and got everything down as best I could. Then once everything was all cleaned up, I started working on the template for the actual shield for the outer edge of the hand. So originally I started doing this in 10mm foam, and it was way too bulky, and I didn't need all that restriction. But in the end, this turned into a pretty good template to get an idea of what size I wanted everything to be. So once I had it made, I just transferred that same template back to 5mm foam. And then I found a decent spot on the hand that looked similar to the action figure, and then I just glued it onto the palm. Now, like I mentioned before with these two gloves, this one you have to design your entire gauntlet around how thick it is, which means when you are, I apologize for the rattling, these are googly eyes. So when you are building something with these in mind, you need to buy these early, because otherwise you are waiting for your gauntlets to be made until these arrive. So with these, I bulked them up to what felt right with the gauntlets that I had already made for that guy. So at that point, the gauntlets had already felt fine, and I was able to run these inside the gauntlets that I had made, which meant I could actually finally start finishing the detail on the gauntlets, which wasn't a whole lot. And then the only remaining detailing I had to do for the wrist was just the trim around the wrist. I saved on that until after the gauntlet was done, or until after the hand was done. That way that if I needed to, you know, widen anything up or shrink anything down for the gauntlet itself, I could do that one final thing. So once I put that one piece of trim around the gauntlet, that meant the gauntlet was done. And then once the gauntlet was done, that meant it was time to pretty much finish up the whole entire arm, really. That's when I attached the elbow piece to the arm into the gauntlet via elastic. Gave it a couple test fits, make sure everything fit good, moved good, and everything was great. And thus concludes the episode on the hands. Definitely not going to say these were easy to make, and definitely not saying they're super detailed. In my case, they don't need to be detailed because you're never really going to see my hands that much because they are holding weapons. There are way more detailed Space Marine hands out there. I could probably give off a good handful list of people who've done way better than this. But this serves the purpose that it needs, and that's all I care about. So now that that's all done, what's left? The fun stuff. Up next, it will be all the detailing. I said that in the last episode, but I completely forgot that I completely forgot about these entirely. So all the detailing is now up next. I have all my B-roll now compiled from the entire build, and everything's time-lapsed and put in order. So I know exactly what all is going to go where, what B-rolls with what test fit footage, and all you name it, all that junk. So I kind of streamlined my process a little bit for making these videos. So detailing will be next. So far, I don't think we've shown any of the actual detailing process on anything. Quick side note before I jump out and say goodbye. I like the new backdrop. Yeah, I just put this up tonight. It needs a little bit more rearranging, but so far I kind of like it. At least it hangs everything up and gets it out of the way. You can now see it all. It's bought them off of Amazon for like $60. It was like display wall grids that you can then hang stuff up on, usually for like stores or stuff like that, but a lot of cosplayers have these for the weapon displays. I think it's kind of cool. I kind of put the bottom one on backwards, but most of all my props are going to be up top anyway, so Oh well. Still works anyway. It's no big deal. But yeah, I still have absolutely no way of ending videos. Maybe by the time I finish this series, I'll finally have something to say proper. That's not the cliched like, comment, subscribe, you know, or only 5% of my viewers are subscribers. Could you please subscribe to my channel to help the algorithm? I hate the petty begging crap, which is why I'm not doing it.